because of the style of the opponent or whatever.
Shane Mosley learned that last Saturday night.
There is a moment in sport that comes along once in a generation. When you watch someone perform and realize that what you are seeing is not simply excellent, it is operating on a completely different plane.
Didn't do much damage, but it was a good right hand.
10 seconds to go, round number 6.
A different relationship between mind, body, timing, and instinct. Roy Jones Jr. gave boxing that moment.
Up until the time that Roy would actually go to the rope.
He was in much better shape than us, and at that time, he had a lot more experience than me. It wasn't no easy fight for him. We got down. Now, I won the first round, he won the second, he won the third.
And he sustained it for almost a decade. He dropped his hands to his sides and invited the best fighters in the world to hit him.
At this stage right here, and
they couldn't.
earlier, this guy was
Now the IBF.
He won world titles at middleweight, super middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight. He made Hall of Famers look ordinary. He did things inside the ropes that no coach has ever been able to teach, because they were not learned. They were simply him. Bernard Hopkins, one of the greatest defensive fighters in boxing history, said it better than anyone that no one would have beat Roy Jones at his best.
Roy Jones Jr. perfected his skills in one of the greatest, if not the greatest fighter of my era, with speed, reflexes, and power. If anyone tried to emulate and copy, Roy Jones was the man at that division.
He was voted that Olympic's most outstanding boxer, and now...
And then one night in Las Vegas, a single left hook changed everything. The most gifted fighter who ever lived, flat on the canvas, knocked out.
This is the first time Roy Jones has been hammered.
The man who had spent 15 years making every punch miss had finally been found by one.
And Roy never saw it coming. Roy is out.
To understand how that was possible, you have to go back to the very beginning. To a 19-year-old kid in Seoul, South Korea, who won every round of an Olympic final.
Interest and worry, concern in this crowd about this decision.
Seoul, the light middleweight final. American Roy Jones, apparently a convincing winner against his Korean opponent, and then Harry started having a few doubts.
And still had the gold medal taken from him.
Oh no.
The most gifted fighter who ever lived, Roy Jones Jr. Welcome back to Scrap Time. Roy Jones Jr. was born on January 16, 1969, in Pensacola, Florida.
Pensacola soil has borne the banners of Spain, France, England, the Confederacy, and the United States of America.
A city in the Florida Panhandle, military town, working class, the kind of place where the heat is heavy and opportunities are earned rather than given. His father, Roy Jones Sr., was two things at once: a decorated Vietnam War veteran who had been awarded the Bronze Star for heroism, and a former professional middleweight boxer who had built a gym and made boxing the centerpiece of his world. The moment Roy Jr. was old enough to put on gloves, his father put them on him. What followed was, by any account, a childhood shaped by boxing in the most intense way imaginable. Roy Sr. was not simply a trainer. He was obsessive and relentless, often brutal. He believed that toughness was not something you encouraged, it was something you forced. He sparred with his young son in ways that most would call abuse. He pushed, punished, berated, and drove the boy to a level of hardship that would have broken most children.
My father was different with that. I have gotten beaten 3 times in one day. I have marks on my arms now that are from beatings that I got when I was a kid.
Roy Jones Jr. described his childhood later in life as living in constant fear of his father's anger.
I love my father. I wanted to be like my father, but my father was so aggressive until I didn't want to share anything.
He once told Sports Illustrated, "After a while, I didn't care about getting hurt or dying. If you're not afraid of pain, you're not afraid of anything." That sentence tells you almost everything you need to know about what made Roy Jones Jr. different inside the ropes.
Look at that lunging thing. It looks like an aircraft leaving an aircraft carrier.
But it also tells you something about the cost. The relationship between Roy Sr. and Roy Jr. would become one of the most complicated and painful in professional boxing. A story of control, estrangement, legal battles, and a bond forged in violence that neither man could fully escape.
I guess all parents, all fathers, the expectation level of their kids is always far greater than, than John Q. Simpson can ever imagine.
We will return to it. For now, the gym. Because from the moment young Roy stepped inside it, the sport revealed something in him that no amount of harsh training had put there. It was simply already there, waiting. Natural speed that no trainer has ever been able to replicate in another fighter. Reflexes that seemed to operate a full beat ahead of everyone else. Hands that moved faster than eyes could follow and landed harder than anyone at his weight had any right to expect. He was, from the very beginning, something the sport had never quite seen before. Roy's amateur career was a masterclass in controlled dominance. He won the United States National Junior Olympics title in 1984, just 15 years old. He won the National Golden Gloves in 1986. He won it again in 1987. He compiled an amateur record of 121 wins and 13 losses, the losses almost entirely coming in his early years before his body and his gifts caught up with each other. By 1988, Roy Jones Jr. was 19 years old and the most exciting young boxer in the United States. He was selected for the Olympic team and traveled to Seoul, South Korea, with one ambition: gold. He won every bout on his way to the final without losing a single round. Not one round. In the entire Olympic tournament, no judge gave a single round to any opponent of Roy Jones Jr.
And Roy Jones gets him again with a beautiful left hook. That is a cracker.
In the light middleweight final, his opponent was Park Si-hoon, a South Korean fighter competing in front of his home nation in his home city, with 70,000 partisan supporters filling the arena. What happened next has never been properly corrected, and for Roy Jones Jr., it never will be. October 2nd, 1988, Jamsil Students Gymnasium, Seoul. Roy Jones Jr. was 19 years old. He had given 9 years of his life to reach this moment. 9 years of his father's gym, of early mornings, of sacrifice, of pain. 9 years compressed into one 3-round fight for an Olympic gold medal.
Major problem concerning Roy Jones, keeps that left low.
From the first bell, it was not a contest.
Impressive. Well, Park has the distinction.
Jones was everywhere, jabbing, moving, unloading combinations from angles that Park Si-hoon had never encountered.
And he caught Park with the left hook. Just under a minute. Oh, what a counter by Roy Jones.
Countering every attack before it could land with something clean of his own.
Mercer winning gold medals, Michael Carvajal losing on a decision, and Roy Jones has opened up in strong fashion against Park Si-hoon. Took his opponent a little bit more seriously in the first round, which can also turn off the judges. Meanwhile, Park, although the crowd reacted to the right by Park, we're live from Seoul, Korea. We'll stay here between rounds as you can count down round number 2. Again, Jones.
Your calling card and take off right there.
Ooh, calling card. He had Park staggered.
I don't know what they're waiting for. If that's not a standing 8, I don't know what is.
There for Park Si-hoon.
Oh, that hook was so hard, Leone just about took a full step in to stop it.
We'll do it. It is all over.
By the end of 3 rounds, the numbers told the story with brutal clarity. Roy Jones Jr. had landed 86 punches. Park Si-hoon had landed 32. Jones had scored 2 standing 8 counts. In any reasonable scoring system, it was not even close.
On point 3.
The Italian referee, Aldo Leone, leaned toward Jones at the end of the fight and reportedly whispered, "I can't believe they're doing this to you." 3 judges, Bob Kasoul of Uganda, Alberto Duran of Uruguay, and Huad Larbi of Morocco, scored the fight for Park Si-hoon. The decision was announced. The arena erupted.
Decision, in my opinion. Deserve it by no standards. Does he deserve it?
Jones stood in the ring, not crying, not protesting, just standing completely still, with the expression of a man who had understood that the world was capable of something truly, profoundly unjust. Moroccan judge Larbi later admitted to reporters that he had scored the fight for Park deliberately, not because Park had won, but because he assumed the other 4 judges would give it to Jones. He was trying to give the home crowd something. He didn't think his vote would be the deciding one.
I know that the Moroccan, Larbi, who I consider to be a reasonable judge, he felt, after the belt went asked, he felt that the American would won it easily. But because the host nation had been so kind and generous and put on a marvelous games, he thought that it would be a good idea to give them the decision so that it was a 4-1 for the American and not a 5-0.
2 of the 3 judges who scored for Park were subsequently banned from boxing for life.
Questions have got to be asked how that decision was arrived at by those 3 judges, and I think that certainly an independent investigation should be held.
The IOC launched an investigation. Olympic boxing changed its entire scoring system as a direct result of what happened in that gymnasium. And yet the result was never officially reversed. Park Si-hoon kept the gold medal.
Well, he should accept that medal with an apology.
Roy Jones Jr. went home with a silver. He was also awarded the Val Barker Trophy, given to the best boxer across all weight classes at the entire Olympic Games. The only time in the history of the award that it has gone to someone other than a gold medalist. The irony was not lost on the 19-year-old from Pensacola. That's a contradiction, he told Joe Rogan decades later.
They gave me Olympic orders. They gave me the Val Barker Cup, which is for the best boxer at the Olympics. Well, that's contradiction. That's contradiction. How is the best boxer here now wearing a gold medal?
Yeah.
There is no answer. There never was.
What could I do?
I mean, did that worry you right away before they announced who the winner was?
When I saw all the Koreans jumping up and down, I knew what they had did. But like I said, there's nothing I can do about that, you know.
What that night did to Roy Jones Jr., what it built into him, what it ignited, is impossible to fully measure. But it is not an exaggeration to say that every extraordinary performance of his professional career was fueled, at least in part, by the memory of what was taken from him in Seoul.
For me, that was the most tragic thing that could have ever happened to me, because at the time I felt like I had sacrificed 9 years of my young life. I had no childhood because of boxing.
He carried that night for 35 years, and then, in 2023, Park Si-hoon flew from South Korea to Roy Jones Jr.'s ranch in Pensacola, walked into his gym, took the gold medal from around his neck, and placed it in Jones's hands. Roy Jones Jr., the most physically composed and controlled fighter of his generation, wept.
He won the gold at the time. He had the gold, but he wants to give it back to you, that it belongs to you.
35 years. That is how long it took for the sport to acknowledge what everyone in that gymnasium already knew.
He suffered, just like I suffered. We both suffered because of what they did, the injustice that other people did to the sport of boxing.
May 6, 1989, Pensacola Bay Center, Roy Jones Jr.'s professional debut. He knocked out Ricky Randall in 2 rounds. Then he won his next 14 fights by knockout. 15 fights, 15 knockouts.
Tiger offense started like Roy Jones is. This is over.
Not one opponent made it to the final bell.
It's very wild. He's keeping his head after he punches.
Spun Johnson, but still, Johnson has never been down. Yes, it is all over.
But the raw statistics, impressive as they were, didn't tell the real story. The real story was how he was doing it. The style, the method.
Tremendous left hook. Oh, yeah.
The thing that made Jones so utterly unlike anything boxing had produced before.
Putting together some of his... down with a straight right.
He kept his hands low, sometimes at his sides entirely, inviting opponents to throw, daring them. And then, as they committed to their punch, the moment they were most extended, most exposed, he was already gone. Already countering, already landing something clean before they could process what had happened. His reflexes operated in a register that other fighters simply could not access. Former heavyweight champion George Foreman watched Jones and said he hits like a heavyweight and moves like a lightweight. His trainer, Alton Merkerson, was more specific. Ruiz not only got the quickest hands in boxing, he's got the quickest mind. The mind was the key. Jones didn't just react faster than other fighters. He anticipated.
And still punches. When he gets down, look at the way he keeps his left hand down.
He read the telegraphing of an attack and was already moving before the opponent's muscles had finished sending the signal to throw. It was not a physical gift alone, it was a neurological one.
Against the ropes.
Something that cannot be coached, cannot be drilled, cannot be manufactured. You either have it or you don't. Roy Jones Jr. had it more completely than anyone in the history of boxing. He was also, quietly, a devastating puncher. Because his opponents spent their time desperately trying to avoid being hit, the casual viewer sometimes missed the fact that when Jones chose to sit down on a shot, the results were brutal. He had knockout power in both hands. He could end fights with the jab if he wanted to. He stopped opponents with body shots. He had combinations that arrived so fast that referees sometimes didn't see them all land.
He's the 1988 Olympic silver medalist. As a professional, his outstanding...
By 1992, he was stepping up in class, facing former world champions and destroying them with the same unhurried efficiency. Jorge Vaca, former WBC welterweight champion, lasted one round. The boxing establishment began to pay serious attention. HBO came calling. The world was starting to understand that something genuinely unprecedented was unfolding in Pensacola, Florida. May 22, 1993. Washington, D.C. Roy Jones Jr. versus Bernard Hopkins for the vacant IBF middleweight championship. Let's be clear about who Bernard Hopkins was at this point. He was not just another contender. He was a serious, dangerous, technically gifted professional who would go on to reign as middleweight champion for a decade and become one of the most celebrated defensive fighters the sport has ever produced. He was disciplined, he was smart, he was experienced. And from the opening bell, Roy Jones Jr. made him look like he had never been in a boxing ring before.
First round, that is normally the case.
It was not a question of Hopkins being outgunned or outpunched in a brawl.
His first middleweight champion ever, would you believe it? Is gaining confidence, but maybe he loses some.
It was something more unsettling than that. Jones simply could not be hit.
Nailed, jumping in, they'll be counting 10.
He moved, he slipped, he countered, he landed, and then he was gone again before Hopkins could respond.
Title of his career.
I've never seen anybody else been able to do it except Roy Jones.
Almost two-thirds of the way through the sketch.
Every tactical adjustment Hopkins made, Jones had already accounted for. Every trap Hopkins set, Jones had already sprung and moved past.
Right hand by Jones.
And it's just such an elusive target. You have to set him up.
Left hand by Jones. Hopkins smiles. Usually that means round 11 comes to a close.
Over 12 rounds, Jones landed 206 punches to Hopkins's 153. He outlanded Hopkins at a higher percentage, despite giving away experience and ring time. He controlled the distance, the tempo, and every single tactical exchange in the fight.
Right, Mr. America. Potential for our big heavyweight championship fight upcoming. The crowd has retained all of its potential enthusiasm.
Hopkins, who would later spend 2 decades as arguably the cleverest defensive operator in professional boxing, spent the whole night trying to solve a puzzle that simply could not be solved with the tools available to any normal fighter.
The winner by unanimous decision, and now the IBF middleweight champion of the world, Roy
Unanimous decision. Roy Jones Jr. was the IBF middleweight champion of the world at 24 years old. Remarkably, Jones later revealed he had fought that entire night with a broken right hand. He mentioned it almost in passing. He hadn't used it. He hadn't needed to. Hopkins, one of the most psychologically composed men in boxing, who was not known for handing out compliments to opponents, said years later,
Roy Jones Jr. perfected his skills in one of the greatest, if not the greatest fighter of my era, with speed, reflexes, and power. If anyone tried to emulate and copy, Roy Jones was the man at that division.
The man who had just been dismantled by him went on to become a Hall of Famer.
Nobody's been able to do it except Roy Jones.
Roy Jones had made him look like a beginner.
It takes a good opponent.
Roy Jones Jr. successfully defended the IBF middleweight title.
The winner by TKO victory, and still the undefeated IBF middleweight champion of the world.
And then did something that announced a new level of ambition. He vacated the belt and moved up to super middleweight, not because he had run out of opponents, but because he simply wanted a bigger challenge. The challenge he chose could not have been more significant. November 18th, if the Hopkins fight established Jones as a world champion, the Toney fight established him as something that existed. James Toney was not just a good fighter. He was, at that moment, the #2 ranked pound-for-pound fighter on the entire planet. He was undefeated in 44 professional fights. He had demolished the middleweight division, then moved up and dominated super middleweight.
Super middleweight champion of the world, James.
He was physically powerful, technically superb, and possessed with the kind of confident contempt for his opponents that only unbroken men carry into the ring. He spent the entire build-up dismissing Jones as a manufactured prospect, as someone fortunate enough to avoid real opposition, as someone whose time had finally come. He was not performing for the cameras. He genuinely believed it. Ring magazine called what followed the most dominant performance in any major fight in 20 years. Jones came out and simply destroyed Toney. Tried to find a way back into the fight. There wasn't one. That was what Roy Jones Jr. could do at his absolute peak.
Hopkins smiles. Usually that means...
Then, in 1996, he moved again, this time to light heavyweight, where he would stake his claim on a division and refuse to relinquish it for the better part of a decade.
3 Florida judges.
In March 1996, Jones won the WBC light heavyweight title by defeating Mike McCallum, a former multiple world champion who was considered one of the best of his era. McCallum was durable, experienced, and dangerous. Jones handled him with a precision that was by now becoming expected, winning a clear, unanimous decision.
He just had not enough power in the last round. Got him. You see, he has for the new WBC light heavyweight champion of the world, Roy.
And then he defended it, and defended it, and defended it. Montel Griffin was first, a tough, skilled fighter who had beaten James Toney twice.
Montel Ice Griffin.
In their first meeting, Griffin managed to pull off a massive upset when Jones was disqualified for hitting him while he was down in the 9th round.
The right hand lead again, and a couple of left hooks. And Griffin's knee goes down, and Jones lands 2 punches after Griffin's knee was on the canvas. And now Griffin slumps forward.
The referee disqualifies the red corner.
It was the first loss of Jones's professional career. It stung, not because Jones was hurt or outfought, but because his own aggression had cost him when victory was within reach. Jones responded the only way he knew how.
A classic counter punch. Jones.
In the rematch, 1 month later, he knocked Montel Griffin out in the first round. 1 round. The man who had managed to take his title lasted less than 3 minutes in the rematch.
He's got trouble. 9
Message sent.
Of a fighter that he doesn't need a jab. No longer unbeaten Montel Griffin, with shocking suddenness and with shocking ease, Roy Jones gets his revenge, and he fainted.
Nobody in the light heavyweight division was under any illusions about what Roy Jones Jr. was capable of when motivated. What followed over the next several years was one of the most complete displays of divisional dominance in the modern history of professional boxing. Virgil Hill, in August 1998, was a former two-time WBA light heavyweight champion, a decorated, durable fighter who had held the title for years and who represented a genuine, credible challenge. Jones met him and delivered one of the most brutal body shot knockouts of his career.
Unheard of.
Hill had been absorbing punishment for several rounds, his ribs taking punishment from Jones's left hook to the body.
And backs Roy into the ropes. Jones lands the left, but it's good test when he gets off first and goes to the body. He settled on the long-thumbed Reyes gloves.
When a perfectly placed shot in round 4 collapsed him in agony. He lay on the canvas holding his ribcage, unable to rise, having been taken apart physically and technically by someone operating on a level he simply couldn't match. David Telesco, Richard Hall, Reggie Johnson, Eric Harding. Each one came with genuine credentials, each one left having been dismantled. But it was the Reggie Johnson fight in June 1999 that stands as perhaps the single most statistically extraordinary performance of Jones's entire career. Johnson held the IBF light heavyweight title. Jones held the WBC and WBA belts. Unifying all three would make him the first undisputed light heavyweight champion since 1985, 14 years without a man holding all the belts simultaneously. Jones won the fight by outlanding Johnson 273 punches to 49 across 12 rounds. Read those numbers again. 273 punches from Jones, 49 from Johnson. In 12 championship rounds, Jones was landing an average of 22 punches per round. His opponent was landing 4. Those are numbers that belong to a different sport. They are numbers that suggest the fight was not competitive, that it was an exhibition, an education, a demonstration by someone who had transcended what boxing normally asks of its champions. Roy Jones Jr. was the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world, WBC, WBA, IBF, every belt in the division at the same time, for the first time since 1985. Outside the ring, meanwhile, Jones was becoming something the sport had simply never encountered before. He was not just a boxer. He raised fighting roosters on his farm outside Pensacola. He played minor league basketball, actual professional basketball, for the Lakeland Blue Ducks and the Jacksonville Barracudas, while simultaneously holding world boxing titles. He appeared in Hollywood films.
What does to you? You got 36 hours.
He released a rap album whose debut single entered the Billboard Hot Rap chart at number 2. He did commentary for HBO. Boxing writers genuinely did not know what to make of him. Here was the best fighter in the world, who seemed entirely unbothered by being the best fighter in the world, who had other things he wanted to do, who played a professional basketball game in the afternoon and defended his boxing titles at night, who carried his extraordinary talent with a lightness that was either inspiring or infuriating, depending on who you asked. He was undisputed. He was dominant. He was, by the consensus of every serious boxing analyst on the planet, the light heavyweight division had nothing left to offer him. Every serious challenger had been dispatched. The belt felt less like an achievement and more like a formality, something he held not because he had fought for it, but because there was simply nobody capable of taking it from him. So he looked up, 2 full weight classes up, and made the most audacious decision of his career. March 1st, 2003. The Thomas and Mack Center, Las Vegas, Roy Jones Jr. versus John Ruiz for the WBA Heavyweight Championship of the world. Roy Jones Jr. weighed 193 pounds. John Ruiz weighed 226 pounds. Jones was giving away 33 pounds. the equivalent of an entire welterweight, to a reigning world heavyweight champion. He was moving up 2 full weight classes from the division where he had been undisputed king. Nobody had done this before. Nobody had seriously considered doing this before. The build-up was dominated by one question. Was this madness? Could a man who weighed less than most light heavyweights genuinely step into the heavyweight division and survive against a champion, let alone win?
Trinidad, will the possibility of a rematch with Oscar De La Hoya lure him out?
Jones answered that question before most people had finished asking it. From the opening round, it was Jones who set the tempo. Not the bigger man, not the champion.
If he doesn't use the jab, no, I think it's both men have made statements in round number.
The smaller man, who used his extraordinary speed to make Ruiz's size advantage almost irrelevant.
The referee won Jones in the first 3 rounds.
Jones moved, jabbed, circled, countered. Ruiz, a solid, durable heavyweight with genuine credentials, spent the night trying to catch someone who simply refused to be in the places Ruiz expected him to be.
Another good round for Roy Jones's boxing style. Straight right hand landed for Jones. Straight right hand lands flush for Jones. Jones is not a guy who's looking for a knockout. You can forget that. All credit to Ruiz for the determination and the grit he's shown in tonight. Using the jab tonight. Oh, that's a good left hook in there. Gives Jones a chance to get back to the center of the ring.
And the crowd stands and cheers.
Jones won on all 3 scorecards, 116 to 112, 117 to 111, 118 to 110. With that victory, Roy Jones Jr. became the first former middleweight champion to win a heavyweight world title in 106 years, since Bob Fitzsimmons achieved the feat in 1897.
I've never been hit in 10-ounce gloves by a heavyweight.
He was 34 years old.
And now the IBF.
He had been middleweight champion, super middleweight champion, undisputed light heavyweight champion, and now heavyweight champion of the world.
Title belts.
4 weight classes. Every title he had chased, he had claimed. At his post-fight press conference, as Jones was answering questions and celebrating, a figure walked into the room uninvited, grabbed a microphone, and issued a direct public challenge. Antonio Tarver, the mandatory challenger for Jones's light heavyweight titles that Jones had vacated to go after Ruiz. A man who had been pursuing Jones for years and was tired of being avoided.
I don't even think you're the best fighter in Florida, and I'm out to prove that. Okay. How much do I have to go through? Who do I have to beat in order for me to get my opportunity at history? All right. Where's the contract, Roy? I'm ready.
Jones, still in his post-Ruiz glow, accepted. He returned to the light heavyweight, came back down from his heavier heavyweight frame. In November 2003, he defeated Tarver in the first fight of what would become a trilogy, a closely contested majority decision that showed Jones was no longer the supernatural force of his undisputed championship years, but that he could still win at the highest level. He was 34 years old. He had beaten everyone. He had claimed every title available to him. He had written his name into boxing history in ink that would never fade. He should have stopped there. He didn't. May 15th, 2004, Mandalay Bay, Las Vegas, Roy Jones Jr. versus Antonio Tarver, rematch. Jones was 49-1. His only loss a disqualification that he had avenged with a first-round knockout. He was the most decorated fighter of his era.
He suddenly had a connection to the audience, which might never have existed before.
He was an 8-1 favorite going into the fight. Nobody in the building genuinely believed Antonio Tarver was going to win. In the pre-fight instructions from the referee, Tarver turned to Jones and delivered the line that would define the night.
I got a question. You got any excuses tonight, Roy? Let's not ask questions like that. Let's touch gloves and go work. Tonight, Roy. Let's go.
Emmanuel, you seen that?
Round 1. Jones controlled it completely. Tarver landed just 2 punches.
Who's in the house during the first fight from time to
Tell the times that Roy would actually go to the ring. Now they're fighting in the center of the ring.
Round 2. Jones moved forward with a combination.
Jones tries to come back.
Tarver shifted his weight, loaded, and threw a counter left hook that arrived precisely where Jones's chin was going to be a fraction of a second later. It landed perfectly. Jones hit the canvas and did not stir. The referee counted him out, 1 minute and 41 seconds into round 2. One of the greatest boxers of his era, a man who had spent 15 years making elite fighters miss and pay, was knocked unconscious by a single punch.
There it was.
The shock was total.
Because he was throwing one.
Not because Tarver was not a good fighter, he was, but because the idea of someone landing clean with full force on Roy Jones Jr. had seemed almost physically impossible.
Never saw it coming. Roy is out. And Roy made...
His whole career had been built on the premise that if you could not hit him, you could not beat him. And for 15 years, nobody could hit him. The theories came quickly. The weight cut from heavyweight had stripped his reflexes. His body, having built up to heavyweight size for the Ruiz fight, never quite recovered its old sharpness when forced back down. Some pointed to a failed drug test before the first Tarver fight, though this was contested and eventually cleared, as evidence that Jones had been operating with chemical assistance. The most honest answer is that Roy Jones Jr.'s gifts were built on a neurological edge so fine that when it began to diminish, as it must for every athlete, there was nothing conventional underneath to fall back on. His defense was his speed. When the speed went, the defense went with it.
Down before one time, but there was a perfect left.
He had never needed to develop the defensive fundamentals that slower, less gifted fighters learn because those things keep them alive. Jones had never needed them. Until suddenly, without warning, he did.
Great cities in the South, Memphis, Tennessee.
September 25th, 2004. Memphis, Tennessee. Roy Jones Jr. versus Glenn Johnson for the IBF light heavyweight title. Johnson was a solid, unspectacular contender, not elite, not feared. The kind of opponent that, 2 years earlier, Jones would have used as a warm-up and dispatched before the mid-rounds. Johnson knocked him out in the 9th round.
Turned it up against
He takes a right hand and a left hand.
Jones lay on the canvas for 3 minutes, 3 full minutes. The man who for 15 years had made every opponent in every division look slow was counted out by a fighter most experts considered a significant step below elite level.
Johnson has ever knocked out an opponent past the 6th round.
2 knockout losses in 4 months. From a man who had gone through 50 fights without being stopped. The invincibility was gone. And without the speed, without the aura, without the neurological gifts that had made him supernatural, Roy Jones Jr. was a very good fighter who was aging, who had a chin that had never truly been tested until it started failing.
Big time laughing Wolfson.
And who was only beginning to understand that the extraordinary thing which had defined his entire life was leaving him. A third fight with Tarver in October 2005 confirmed it. Jones lost a unanimous decision. The era of dominance was definitively over.
At this point in the fight,
I think this raises maybe the probability.
Winner by unanimous decision, and still universally recognized the light heavyweight champion of the world, Antonio.
Roy Jones Jr. fought on until 2018, 13 more years after the Tarver knockout that ended his prime. He won many of those fights. He lost some. He was knocked out again by Danny Green in 2009. Stopped by Denis Lebedev in 2011. He took fights in Russia, where he was beloved and where the opposition was more manageable. He chased cruiserweight titles through organizations most boxing fans had never heard of. He fought in Pensacola on small local cards in front of people who simply wanted to see Roy Jones Jr. one more time. Why? Money is part of it. His lifestyle throughout his career had always been expensive. When the big purses stopped, the appetite for income remained. But money alone does not explain a man still fighting at 49 years old. The ring was the only place Roy Jones Jr. had ever been completely, undeniably, perfectly himself.
and then Jones says, look, you want more? Okay.
Outside it, the world was complicated. The estrangement from his father, the legal battles, the businesses, the question of who he was when the gloves were off. All of it required navigation. Inside the ropes, everything had always made sense. He had always known exactly what to do. The tragedy of his later years was not that he kept fighting. It was that the gift which had made the ring so natural to him, the speed, the timing, the fraction of a second advantage that had made him look superhuman, was gone. And he was fighting on without it, living on reputation and resilience, trying to recapture something that could not be recaptured. His final professional fight was in February 2018 in his hometown of Pensacola. He won.
Mr. Roy Jones Jr.
He retired with a record of 66 wins and 10 losses, 47 knockouts, inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2022. But let us be clear about what Roy Jones Jr. actually achieved. Professional record, 66 wins, 10 losses, 47 knockouts. Career spanning 1989 to 2018.
Going for him in the ring.
World champion in 4 weight classes: middleweight, super middleweight, light heavyweight, heavyweight. The only boxer in history to start as a light middleweight and win a heavyweight world title. The first former middleweight champion to win a heavyweight title in 106 years. The first undisputed light heavyweight champion since 1985. Fighter of the Decade for the 1990s, Boxing Writers Association of America. 3-time ESPY Award winner for Best Boxer. So here's what we want you to settle in the comments. Roy Jones Jr. in his prime was arguably the most physically gifted fighter the sport has ever produced. His record across 4 weight classes is historic. His peak performances are among the most dominant in boxing history. But here's the question. If he had retired after the John Ruiz fight in March 2003, undefeated as undisputed light heavyweight champion, undefeated as heavyweight champion, never having been knocked out, would he be remembered without question as the greatest fighter of his generation? And does staying until 2018, suffering the knockouts, fighting in Russia on small cards, does that genuinely damage the legacy? Or does it change nothing about what the record clearly shows he was? Was Roy Jones Jr. the most gifted fighter who ever lived? And did staying too long cost him the recognition that peak deserved? Tell us in the comments.
Black stripe and he's down flat on his back for the left hook.